All right, we're live with the Catalyst Sport podcast. This is episode, 10, 11 at this point. And I'm Jason Kapnick here with Joe Boffey, and today we're talking about bodyweight exercises. How's it going, Joe?
Good. I'm happy to be socializing virtually here.
Yeah, I think it's strange times for sure. In some ways, it's good to be socializing. In some ways, definitely getting tired of Zoom a little bit. But I think it's Friday. It's sometime between Thursday and Sunday, and
It's
you know,
day. It's a nice day
it's
actually. I'm
it's
just
it's
outside.
yeah, it's a little chilly, but the sun's out, which is nice. And yeah, so we're talking about our favorite body weight exercises. And Joe, I think you're really more of a body weight guy. I know you've done a lot of calisthenics and body weight over the years, and you know, I think all people should be doing some body weight training. Whether you're a power lifter, whether you're just, for general fitness, certainly if you're involved in athletic pursuits. So why don't you kick us off though, Joe, on one of your favorite body weight exercises?
All right, this one's kind of a newfound love. It's the dive bomber or Hindu push-up or whatever offensive term you want to
Yeah.
call the exercise.
We had a real conversation before we hit record of whether Hindu push-up is appropriate to say. So if you're offended, I'm sorry.
Yeah, he didn't name it. It's just
Right. Is dive bomber offensive to people who are involved in Pearl Harbor? We can't avoid everybody.
I mean, if you go with true yoga terms, I guess people do call it chaturanga. It's a very similar movement. At least when I was doing it in the living room yesterday, Alex walked in and was like, "Why are you doing so many chaturangas? And how do you get so close to the ground?"
So,
And
so why don't you describe what that dive bomber push-up is, just in case
cool.
anyone's unfamiliar with it.
So the way I like to do it is I have my hands about shoulder width apart. I'll have my knees bent and my feet hip width apart, so that it could be touching, but I like it better hip width apart. I stick my butt up in the air. I try to get my shoulder blades kind of retracted, almost in like a modified down dog position, and then I dive bomb my head towards the floor, and I want to hit a nice scooping arch and kind of be in that like cobra pose where my hips are close to the floor and my chest is nice enough. The whole time I'm trying to really engage and feel the muscles around my shoulder blades as I'm doing this. So I'm like pulling myself through my arms so I can really get my back engaged, because back is one of the hardest things to get in body weight exercising unless you have a pull-up bar, which is one of our next exercises. But I really like to get that nice extension. It opens up the chest. As like a male who has been kind of protracted and chest dominant throughout my life, and in my sport of like kickboxing and jujitsu and stuff, I really feel that diving and arching through opens me up really well, and I can feel all the muscles around my shoulder blades working, and just really like the way it feels.
Nice. Do you do any progressions off it? You ever do like a one-legged dive bomber? Or like, I mean, I guess in theory one arm's possible, but that'd be pretty
I don't.
impressive.
I
Yeah.
personally don't. I just kind of like it how it is. Like this is kind of one of those ones. There's like some myth of like doing 50 of these before and after training is like more effective than push-ups. There's some like wrestler story in there somewhere. I don't really know it. I just it's either Gable or it's like a old school kind of Persian myth, but I'm not sure which one it is.
Okay.
Um,
Great. So there is a story. We don't know it, but
there is one there. We couldn't find it.
they're great exercise. I feel like a lot of people got exposed to those, like in team sports and in martial arts. It's like something you do in the warm up, but like I know you're devoting time in your training to it right now, and I'm probably taking a deeper dive, no pun intended, on it. I think that was really interesting commentary about the shoulder blades and opening up the chest on that. So don't sleep on the Hindu push-up or dive bomber push-up, whichever
And if you
term
do
you
it in your
prefer.
jujitsu warm up, please actually do it, because the shit I see that goes on in the beginning of class, they're like little weird like spasms in the push up position, and like they really help your shoulder health too by getting that full range of motion.
Nice. Yeah, I mean, it's like you're going through a really interesting range of, not just shoulder motion, but also like shoulder blade motion too, as you mentioned. All right, next one here. I'll take the next one. Pull-ups. I think pull-ups to me are like the king of the body weight exercises. At least in my training and what I've done. Joe and I were saying before we got on the podcast here, I was really bad at pull-ups for a really long time. I remember being bad at them in elementary school for like Presidential Fitness Challenge. I started working out in probably like 2001. I was about 15 years old. I had 10 years of training under my belt. By the time I was like 24, 25, I was probably still stuck at, maybe like 8, 9, 10 pull-ups. And fast forward, I'll brag on some of my best pull-up accomplishments. People seen on YouTube or seen Beast Tamer. I've done a pull-up with a 106-pound kettlebell. I've actually done doubles at that weight. I've done with a 10 kilo. I've done 16 pull-ups. So I went from being really bad at them to pretty good at them. And so the obvious question is like, what changed? How did I go from being bad at pull-ups for like a decade to within a couple years? Being really good at them. And I was thinking about it last night, and I'll identify kind of two things that really changed it for me. The first one was shoulder stability and overhead position. Throughout like the early parts of my training career, I don't think I had the appropriate workload in overhead positions. Like I didn't do a whole lot of Olympic lifting, and I didn't get into kettlebells, in that time. So really most of my overhead stuff was like dumbbell shoulder press. I would do some barbell overhead press, but probably wasn't having a great overhead lockout position there. So once I got a much better overhead position, on pressing movements, on mobility, on shoulder stability, that made a huge difference on my pull-ups. And then the second big breakthrough is core stability. When I got into the hardstyle RKC methodology, certainly when we met Dr. Dooley and started working with her, and just, really keeping that cylinder intact, that's going to generate so much power on your pull-up. You will only be able to get so far on your pull-ups, I believe, by arching your back and kind of just hanging on your spine, ribs out, loss of neutral spine pull-up. You're only going to be able to get so far on that. When you learn how to use your core effectively and really generate power from your center, that's when you're going to get good at pull-ups.
Your lats have nothing to like pull on if you're just like a wet noodle. So
Yeah, absolutely. It's a tension thing. It's a core thing. Um, and obviously those go together, right? If you don't have a good overhead position, if you can't get your arms overhead without hyperextending your lower back, you're already behind the eight ball. So, pull-ups, I know Joe's also a really strong pull-up guy. I've seen Joe do, 20 something body weight pull-ups, like it's nothing.
26 was my record.
Yeah.
I wasn't as strong as you as like a full single pull, but like I was pretty good at like repping them out and just going that way.
I mean, you probably helped me a lot. Like, I remember when we first met, like, I was probably still in that phase where I was stuck on kind of like 10 to 12 pull-ups and like, without good core, and, you know, got to New York sports clubs and met you, and you were already like, you were probably doing that, 20, 25 pull-ups. And I think, I remember your pull-ups always looked good. So I never saw bad pull-ups from you, but you've seen bad pull-ups from me. So, but,
Well, I mean, it's kind of like we've said it before to many clients. It's like you need to do a lot of pull-ups to be good at pull-ups, and you need to do them often.
yeah.
It's like they're one of those exercises that just responds to like You got to do them, and you got to do them all the time. You lose them fast, but you can get them back fast, but you have to do them all the time.
Yeah, that was the other thing I was thinking about last night when I was thinking about pull-ups is like maybe it's like could add it as number 3 is when I got a pull-up bar in my house is when I got good at pull-ups. In my apartment. I think people have heard me say this before. The key to getting good at pull-ups is frequent sub-maximal output. So just doing them, 4, 5, 6 days a week, but never like going to the red line, never like going to failure. If you just do them, you just do them all the time. Every time you walk by your pull-up bar, you do a couple. That's the way to really get good at pull-ups. The frequency method, greasing the groove, whatever we call it. What's next, Joe?
Well, let's go lower body. We've done a couple upper body.
Yeah.
So some form of, obviously, like a body weight squat. It's great, do it for sure. But the way to increase your efficacy is to like reduce the amount of legs you're using in your squat. So you could do like a pistol squat, but that's very mobility dependent. So if you do some form of like Cossack squat, or which is where your legs are spread really wide and you're squatting down to one side and your other leg kind of rotate up to the ceiling.
Well, now we've offended the Cossacks.
Yeah, I don't even. Okay. So we'll call it. You could do a lateral lunge, which is the same thing without rotating the foot up to the ceiling. It's almost the same thing. Just biasing your squat to the one side, makes it that much harder. You're not doubling the load on that one leg because your other leg's still kind of on the ground, but just by shifting into that hip, you get some of that shifting. You can get some adductor work by really, we're focusing on the knee tracking over the foot. And yeah, it's super easy. You could do it anyway. So you don't, not limited by space, I guess.
Well, I think that's one thing that's probably like kind of one of the criticisms of body weight training is it's hard to get your legs, but if you're smart about it, there's plenty of ways to do it. And I think Cossack squats and lateral lunges and getting into that quote frontal plane is great. It definitely improves hip stability, and you can get your legs pretty strong that way. And the pistol squat, like you said, is a tough one, but requires a lot of mobility, a lot of strength. But it's a good thing to be able to do a pistol squat too.
I think so. It's a good measure of athleticism in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
You could, we're not doing like a progression regression talk, but you could easily do your pistol squats to a chair. Everybody's got a chair. Everybody's got a couch. Like, just use one leg and sit down gently and stand back up.
Yeah, we could probably do a whole podcast on pistol squats and how to get them.
Yeah, I love that.
If you're listening and you want us to do that, just let us know. Maybe we will. Next one, I'll say planks. So, Joe and I were talking about this before we got on the call, and Joe, he kind of challenged me. He's like, "Do you do planks?" And I'm like, because it seems like it's an exercise that's too easy. And the answer is I do a lot of planks. Actually, I do a lot of weighted planks. I'll put
do you even plank, bro?
I do even plank, bro. Plank, bro. Every week for sure. I do a lot of weighted planks. I love to put a plate on my back and hips. It can be a little bit awkward, especially if you're training by yourself. If you got a training partner, to have someone put a weight plate on your lower back and hips.
Are you really doing a body weight exercise if you're using a weight?
Ooh, interesting. Okay.
So what other way are you going to do your plank with just your body?
Yeah. So the one that I've been doing a lot recently is single arm planks. So I'm doing it from the elbow, so it's a little bit more core and shoulder focused. And yeah, from the elbow, just like a regular plank, pick one arm up, and you got your single arm plank. If you want to make it harder, you do single arm, single leg plank. I think they're great for shoulder stability. They're great for, again, shoulder blade positioning, shoulder blade stability. You get a lot of core in it. You have some rotational force because you've only got one arm supporting you. And if you never tried one arm planks, definitely give it a try.
Do you ever do you like pick a point and try to touch the point on like the wall or something so you could really get the shoulder blade engaged, like over the head?
Oh, with the opposite arm that's supporting.
No, the one that's in the air. So you kind of touch a point further away from you.
So like one arm I've got on the ground, and then the other one I touch something with.
Yeah, exactly.
I haven't. Maybe I will today.
You could pick something that's a little higher than your head so you really get your shoulder blade engaged.
Yeah. One of the things we've said a lot at Catalyst is, and Dr. Dooley, I'm sure said too, is like if you like dissect a cadaver, you can't tell where the serratus muscle, which is involved in protracting the shoulder, you can't tell where that ends and where the obliques begin of the abdominals. So anytime we're in that prone position where we're face down and we can protract the shoulders all the way forward, and actually we do have video here, get the shoulder blade flat against the back of the rib cage.
He's pushing forward with his palm really far in front of him.
Right, for those that are
that's not
on
video.
iTunes, well, come find us on YouTube. But yeah, that's gonna just tie together your core to the rest of your body, because your core, why is the core so important? Well, the core allows us to transfer power from lower body to upper body and vice versa. And when we can tie that core in to the rest of the body, we just make it that much more effective.
Cool.
Let's do one more here before we run out of time on this podcast.
So let's do a single leg deadlift.
Okay.
I like single leg deadlift without a weight or with a weight, but I mean we're doing body weight, so we're gonna say without a weight. It's good for just balance, stability through your hip. Your foot works like crazy. You're working like a hinge pattern, so you get the shifting in your hip, and you can really power out of it. There's many variations. When we do like a runner's pose variation in our training with our members, where the back leg fires up nice and strong, and you kind of throw your knee towards the air when you come out of your single leg deadlift. You could do that with a little jump. You could do it without the jump. I think that you kind of turned me on to this one. Did you call it like an airplane or something at the end?
Yeah.
You do your single leg deadlift. And when you're doing a single leg deadlift, you generally want your pelvis parallel to the floor, your ASIS pointing at the ground in like a very neutral position. But when you get to that deep hinge, you could then work opening that hip up, and it's kind of like a airplane banking a turn, and then bring the hip back down. And that way you add a little bit of dynamic kind of movement into that hinge. And you had some reasons that you like to do that too.
Yeah, I think it's good for hip stability. I think actually Dr. Jake turned me on to this. I think when I was having a some kind of hip or back, or who knows what it was that Dr. Jake was helping me with. I think they're great. If you want to really make it like an airplane, you can put your arms out at your sides and make airplane noises while you do it.
I was gonna say you have to make noises if you do it though.
But they're hard, and I think the challenge for a lot of people on the airplane is going to be to keep from just going into a straight leg position. Not that that's wrong, but I think it's just less authentic to gait, and you're kind of giving up some hamstring there. But in the single leg deadlift, the planted knee should be soft, let's say. It should be bent a little bit, and yeah, that's going to be the challenge for a lot of people on single leg deadlifts, is that they don't turn it into a straight leg single leg deadlift, which is, I don't think it's wrong. I think it's just different, and I think you are giving up a little bit of effect there because it's, like I said, it's less authentic to gait.
Yeah, we're trying to work like that hip hinge and that eccentric load on the glute and all that kind of stuff while we're doing it. Which is why we don't want to do it the straight leg for us, like the way we use it.
Right. Yeah, I think it's as it translates into like bilateral patterns and just athleticism. Anyone who's taken the RKC with me knows that one of my pet peeves is a straight leg hinge, where you're not getting the full power of your lower body into it, where you're only using posterior chain. We do want to have some knee bend in a hinge. The knees don't travel forward, but they do bend, and that allows us to maximally displace the hips horizontally and generate the most power, in our hinge. So watch out for that one as you're doing single leg deadlifts.
Cool.
Cool.
That's a pretty rounded list, I think.
Yeah.
I
What did
mean,
we do? We did 1, 2, 3, 4. We did 5 there. Perfect. 6. Whatever we did, they were great exercises, and those are some of our favorite body weight exercises. This was kind of like a sort of a sequel to our favorite kettlebell workouts. But as far as closing thoughts go, thank you for listening. What else we got? We're always available by email. Shoot us emails. Let us know what you want us to talk about on these podcasts. Let us know if you have questions, and we'll see you next time.